Good afternoon, everybody. It's actually 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK, which probably means that it's beer time somewhere. So I hope you don't mind, but I cracked open a beer. I assume you guys are doing the same at some point later on today. But first of all, thanks very much to Alex. Obviously, it's a shame that we can't all meet up. But it is what it is, and I just want to say thank you to Alex and all the team there for letting us speak very briefly today. I trust everyone's safe and well. I know that a lot of us are having to adopt to new ways of working. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on what we've been up to at IGEL. I think most of you probably follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, so you see a lot of what's been going on, and we try and do a number of weekly webinars and events as we go through the year anyway. But give you a little bit of an update and just clarify some things, hopefully, and maybe point out some things that you may well have missed over the last couple of weeks. And then I'm going to wrap things up with a demonstration. I have recorded it. However, I'm going to do it live, so fingers crossed, here we go. Most of you probably are more than aware of the fact that somewhere between 3 and 5 years ago, IGEL made a shift to really focusing our attention on our software, and we now refer to ourselves as this next generation edge operating system, a purpose-built operating system that allows us to connect into cloud workspaces. We'd like to talk about simple, smart, and secure. Simple because it's a damn sight easier to manage than Windows is on the endpoint. Smart because it's a smart investment. We find that a lot of organizations at the moment, they don't want to rip and replace their hardware, so they can put the IGEL operating system on their existing endpoints, convert them from Windows 7, Windows 10, whatever it might be, and they can extend the life, and it saves them ripping and replacing their existing endpoints. That, by the way, includes other third-party thin client devices, which tends to be quite a common trend at the moment. And as I'll come on to, this operating system is built on a 64-bit Linux platform. Is a read-only platform, so it is obviously incredibly secure. And one of the things that lots of organizations are worrying about now that they've enabled work from home via VDI and desktop as a service, they're now coming back around and saying, okay, well, we do need to worry about what's going on the endpoint. We need at least some visibility. We at least need to be able to manage that as well, particularly seeing as that work from home in some cases is going to continue and dare I use the term become the new normal, as I'm sure you're aware. So lots and lots of focus on that operating system. In fact, the majority of the development is done in Germany. There's over 100 developers that are focused on just developing that operating system, and as you'll see, embedding all of the additional software that goes into that operating system. Many of those technologies are ones that we've already heard from today, and we will hear from over the coming days. Control Up, Login VSI, PC over IP from Teradici to support access to parallels, and a whole host of others. It should be worth noting, though, that we do still manufacture hardware. We're still very proud of our hardware. I hear too many times, oh, you're getting out of the hardware business. No. A large proportion of our business still comes from hardware and putting the software on that hardware. It's just that we have decoupled them. So, you know, in some cases, people are buying 10, 20, 100,000 copies of the operating system and deploying it on other hardware. In other cases, they're deploying the chassis alongside it. Some of you to the left of that screen will see at the start of this year, we released a smaller form factor UD2 device. This has proved very, very popular, very performant for the cost price. But one thing I really want to talk about is the UD3, and the UD3 is literally no more than about a week old into the market. If you've not seen the video that we released, then feel free. I'll just mute that just so it's not playing, but that video available online. It takes you through a lot of the functionality that is in that device. Some of the key things I'd point out about that UD3 is the security and the performance on it. It does have an AMD Ryzen system on chip, which obviously delivers very good performance capabilities. But then more importantly, it also allows us to create what we call this secure chain of trust, which means from the moment you power that on, the chipset, the operating system, the UEFI, all the way through to the back-end VDI is completely been secured and encrypted, checking that the operating system hasn't been tampered with. The UD3 is also one of the first devices to come with Teradici PC over IP support, and it actually includes PC over IP Ultra, which is obviously very good for design manufacturing. The other thing I wanted to call out was that our friend Benny, who I know has already spoken today, did some work looking at the UD3 when it was still in early access program, and he did some very, very good comparisons comparing how that UD3 performed with a dedicated GPU against the Windows client and also the web client. Again, if you want to go to igel.com/blog, you'll see that there are some references to that. And again, the video that both Jim and Benny were showing earlier today, where they use the Rex Analytics platform, we've got those tests that have been done with that new UD3 device. So many, many thanks to Benny for that. But again, just proving that we are pushing the limits of what is possible in those devices. So the other thing that hopefully you'll be aware of is this little USB key device that we talk about quite a lot. That UD Pocket continues to be increasingly popular. Obviously, at the moment, when you've sent a load of employees to go and work at home, and then you're coming back round to try and improve that and allow them to work from home for a longer period of time, and you want to deploy a secure managed endpoint, giving them the ability to take that IGEL operating system on that USB key, plug it into any device, and allow it to boot, obviously provides people with an easy way of doing that. Quick example for you, we've just sold 2,500 of these devices to an organization who sadly sent all of their employees to work from home. Yes, they deployed Citrix and VDI, but unfortunately Office 365 was still being deployed natively down to the Windows endpoint. Ransomware attack took place, and the easiest way of them dealing with that and ensuring that wasn't going to take place any further was obviously to send out the UD Pocket, allow people to plug in dual boot, and at least give them a secure workspace to access their VDI Citrix estate from. Interestingly enough, that sort of leads me on to what people have been doing with IGEL over the last 10 to 12 weeks. Again, lots of you will know that IGEL sells hardware and sells this operating system. Many of you will know that the market-leading management platform, the IGEL UMS, allows IT administrators to manage these IGEL devices and operating systems with ease. Some cases we've got customers that have quite publicly spoken about the fact that they've got one person managing 20,000, 30,000 of these things. Very, very easy, as you'll see in a second in the demo, to update and change the configuration of, and therefore secure. But what we're starting to see more of now is that operating system be deployed onto other third-party thin client devices and also onto other platforms. The world of desktop as a service means that Citrix, VMware, Amazon, Microsoft, they are iterating their cloud platform significantly quicker than ever before, which is causing a challenge down at the endpoint. Even if you move to Citrix Workspace, you need a particular client to be able to connect to that. We've seen Microsoft update to their latest ARM infrastructure recently. So keeping your clients up to date is becoming a challenge, and hence being able to deploy IGEL OS onto other types of devices is obviously helping with that. But when it comes to the UD Pocket, when it comes to working from home, people want to be able to take the same management that they had in the office and apply that to their home environment. So regardless of whether you convert a laptop, x86 64-bit laptop, to IGEL OS and install it on there, or whether you run it off the UD Pocket, management can be achieved over the web via what we call the IGEL Cloud Gateway. This is a virtual appliance, very secure. It uses 443 to communicate. Again, what it's doing is extending the management of that UMS out to your remote machines. And so what we've seen a lot of in recent months are people coming to us and saying, hey, we need some UD Pockets, hey, we need some IGEL OS licenses, and we'd like to set up and deploy this IGEL Cloud Gateway. So what we've actually done is put a work from home kit together, and that's actually allowed our customers to actually consume all of that technology for a 50% discount on the complete bundle. So there is something called the work from home kit, which you may have seen, but that work from home kit is giving people access to the software, the UD Pocket, and access to the gateway and all of the management that we spoke about. Likewise, I do think it's worth me mentioning the trade-up program that we also announced recently. Anybody that was on an old version of IGEL prior to OS 11 or is on any of the old hardware historically would have had to pay for an OS 11 license to get the latest version of the operating system, which obviously contains all of the new great features, all of the integrations from some of the ecosystem partners and things like WVD support, and also what we now call custom partition support, which I'm going to demonstrate to you in a second. We've actually removed the need to buy that license. So the IGEL trade-up program very simply removes all of those barriers. It allows people with active subscription to migrate free of charge to OS 11. So any of your customers or yourselves that are there with old pieces of IGEL kit or old versions of the operating system, as long as you've got active maintenance, you can actually get hold of OS 11 now, which I think is incredibly important when people are trying to deploy secure workspaces. Lots and lots of people on this event over the next 2 days: Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, AWS, Parallels. The real power of our operating system is actually the 90, not the 80 that it says on that slide. I'm the guy that looks after marketing. I should shoot myself. It's actually 90 embedded technologies, 90 plus embedded technologies now. But you know, whether you've got printing challenges, whether you're looking at like we heard from Control Up this morning, understanding your environment, what's going on your endpoints, whether you need to use tap and go, things like Improvata, whether you're using security, contextual security technologies like Device Trust, we are partnering with more and more of these alliance vendors to make sure that we continue to stay as up to date as possible, offer support for the latest cloud workspaces, desktop as a service environments, but also make these other technologies work out of the box. And so we are shipping the operating system now with things like Control Up, Liquidware support, Printer Logic support, Improvata support built into the operating system. And we continue to work on that. In fact, we've got a complete team now that is dedicated on our alliance business, working with our alliance partners, but also working with our development team to fast track a lot of that. And that can really be seen probably best by the work we've done with Microsoft. Again, thanks to a few people on this call, particularly Jim Moyle, you know, for all of the joint work that we've done over the last 18 months, 2 years. But, you know, our relationship with Microsoft now and working with them on the Linux SDK has really allowed us to accelerate our support for WVD. As you know, we were the first Linux-based client on the market for WVD, and IGEL OS 11.3.500 went GA earlier this year. Came with a whole host of features. We've got people up and running now using IGEL OS, accessing WVD. Importantly, as the latest Azure Resource Manager feed came out the other week, we were very quick, within probably about 6 or 7 days, to get that turned around and get that out to market as well. We added session reliability in the 3.580 release that just came out probably only a week or so ago. And we continue to partner, I think would be the best word to say, with Microsoft on making sure that we are not just developing our own operating system, but developing that Linux SDK to ensure that we can offer like-for-like functionality to the best of our ability on the Linux clients. So lots of talk at the moment around Teams and the support for Teams and when we're going to be offloading that. So we're working with Microsoft on that. But hopefully, as you'll see in a second, I do have another way of achieving that I'm going to show you in the demonstration. One last thing that I would like to call out is something called, it's the OSC, it's an MSI file, it's a very small agent. Lots of you will know that we can convert an existing Windows device and install the IGEL OS on top of that device, removing Windows underneath and effectively extending the life of that PC and using it as an IGEL endpoint. Typically, there were ways that we could centrally deploy that, but in the most part, what we found was that people were wandering around manually putting USB keys in and converting those devices one after the other. We have now released an agent that goes on Windows. It can be deployed out via SCCM, Intune, group policy, however an organization may want to do it. The OSC MSI file gets deployed down to your Windows environment. It immediately then talks back to our management platform, the UMS, and then at a given time, based on that machine, what group it's in, etc., we can then kick off a installation of the IGEL OS and convert that device remotely. This again is proving extremely useful as more and more of these endpoints are currently sat at home, and about 25% of them in the world at the moment are still running Windows 7, which is quite worrying in itself. So small tool available to everybody. You don't need an IGEL license for it. You can deploy that out onto your Windows devices. It checks in with the UMS, and then we can convert all of those endpoints into IGEL remotely. And watch out for more work on things like Intune and Workspace ONE integration. This really is just the start of that. That's not showing particularly well, that graphic, so I apologize, not sure what's happened there. But one thing I do want to talk to you about is a release that we made a couple of weeks back, which enables something called custom partition support. And this, as you might be able to tell from that horrendous slide that's come up, is helping organizations deploy native applications like Teams, like Zoom, and like Ring Central. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop out of my presentation here and make sure that you can see my screen. What you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen here is the IGEL OS, currently running as a VM. Anybody, by the way, can go to igel.com/download. You can get a 90-day evaluation of IGEL OS. It no longer requires you to register that for the first 30 days either. So you can get this up and running in your environment. You can download the UMS. In my case, it's just sitting on a Windows server. What you'll see on the left-hand side, and I appreciate it is quite small, but what you'll see on the left-hand side is the IGEL operating system in its native format. You'll see that there is a Firefox browser that I can launch, nice and simple. That will probably go to the IGEL website. There we go. And there's not much else configured. This is this read-only, secure, easy-to-manage OS that's running. Requires 2 GB of RAM and performs very, very well. On the right-hand side, you can see that that IGEL VM is talking to my management console and is currently sat in a default configuration stage. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to go and move that machine into my E2E demo folder. And what that is going to do is it's going to immediately push out a new configuration down to the device. In this particular case, I'm going to push out a configuration which tells that machine to support WVD. VMware, Horizon, RDP, PC over IP, so for a connection back to AWS, Parallels, Citrix itself. It's going to enable things like shadowing as well. And as you can see, it also changes the wallpaper, so it gives it a healthcare type wallpaper. I can obviously click on any of those. I can go off to my Citrix storefront. I can receive the applications. I can get it to come back and put all of the published applications on my desktop. If I want to, I can connect to a WVD. If I make this a little bit bigger for yourselves, hopefully you'll be able to see that. We're now connecting from the IGEL OS up into Windows Virtual Desktop. And very quickly, you'll now see I've got a nice looking Windows 10 desktop for me. I can go into there and I can launch Word and create a document. Nothing too exciting there. But if I come back out of that and I minimize my WVD, what you'll also see now on my desktop is that my desktop has been populated with all of my Citrix applications as well. Nice and simple. So very quickly, I was able to push out a configuration that updated the Citrix client, updated the configuration, pointed people at different VDI, desktop as a service types of environments. So I'm going to log off Citrix. I'm going to put that back to how it was. And in this particular case, I'm just going to come and move that machine for a second time. And this time I'm going to move that machine into another group. Now, this group has been configured with custom partition support. Now, what that means is that whilst there is over 90 baked-in technologies that are part of the read-only part of the operating system, I'm now mounting a separate partition, which has got a write element to the OS. And in this particular case, not only have I changed the wallpaper to show London, but I've also deployed out the Chrome browser, which proves extremely popular with people. So we can quite easily go and run Chrome. So I've taken the Linux version of Chrome, I've packaged it up centrally, put it into the UMS, and now I'm able to deploy that out. I've also got the ability to go and launch Zoom, so I can quite easily go and sign in. So I can log in with my IGEL account here and go and run Zoom quite happily, natively on the IGEL operating system. And more importantly, I can go and launch Teams. Now, because I'm able to launch Teams, what I'm actually doing is running that natively. That is the Linux preview of Teams. You can see here that I've got the ability to have all of my chat. It will quite happily load my calendar up. If I want to go into calls, I can go and give, for instance, somebody a call. It will take on board my local audio. It will take on board my camera, and it will quite happily make that call. At any point, I can minimize out. I can go back in. I can launch my WVD session. My WVD session, I can be connected to my desktop. I can be running that alongside any of the teams that's running. Now what you'll see is that that particular individual that I just called is calling me back. So I can still see and access my WVD session, but my notifications for Zoom and for Teams are still coming in. In this particular case, I'll just get rid of him. So whilst we wait on Teams support and offloading from some individuals, what you'll start to see here is that via this custom partition support, we do have the ability to install applications natively on the Linux operating system. So hopefully you guys hadn't seen too much of that before. If I just go back to my slide, I've got a couple of things I'm going to wrap up on because I'm very conscious of time. Hopefully you guys will have also seen a campaign that we're doing. You'll be familiar with the fact that a couple of years ago we gave away a Tesla and then a Porsche. We're giving away multiple prizes this year. One of them is a $20,000 home office makeover, and the other one is a quarterly $5,000 giveaway of home office tech. There are new chairs in there, curved monitors, LG Gram devices, keyboard and mouse combos. I think there's even a coffee machine in there as well. What's important is the first of those draws is going to take place on June the 25th at Digital Disrupt. There'll be a draw for EMEA and there'll be a draw for North America. So if you haven't gone to our website or www.workspacecoolplace.com, you can register and obviously enter into that competition. And it wouldn't be fair without me mentioning the IGEL community on an event like this. We are now up to 3,755 members on the IGEL community. We've got over 118,000 messages that are being posted. This has been a phenomenal piece of work, not just by Doug in terms of setting it up, but by many of you on this call in terms of helping share information. The Slack channel works really well. We're having conversations on there about helping people get their labs set up, how are they deploying, for instance, the IGEL gateway that I mentioned to enable remote working, and also lots of conversations on there at the moment about those custom partition support and deploying Teams and Zoom and those types of applications natively as well. So with that, I don't know how long I took. I hope I didn't take too much of the time. I think I may well have overrun ever so slightly. Thank you again to everyone for listening. Are there any questions?
Here, the most important question one, is there an E2VC code for entering the prize draw?
Yes, that will go live within the hour, and that code will be E2EVC. Simple as that.
All right, okay. And there are a couple of questions that I assigned to you. One of them is, can you update UD Pocket remotely or over the cloud? Assume updates are required time to time for security or config changes.
Yes, you can. So you can set up, so you could take a load of UD Pockets now, you could configure them, you could pre-configure them to talk back through the cloud gateway to your UMS. You could send them out, and then once they're out in the field, then they can be updated. I've got a couple of instances. I've got a UMS that's running locally, actually on Parallels for Mac, funnily enough, but I've also got a UMS that's running in the cloud behind an ICG, and yes, we can update firmware over the web.
All right, okay, and then very quickly, the last question is, well, at least the one I can see, any approach for FIDO2 case pass-through with Citrix RDS? Does that work yet? Seems to be emerging, but I cannot easily determine if it's possible.
Andy Cook, if I can, I will take that offline and I will defer that to someone that knows significantly more than I do.
All right, okay. Well, thanks very much, Simon. And it's
thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.